早上摸一下。你是讲早上还是什么？
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Can, Miss. Good morning, Miss.
Yes, yes.
Morning. How is your weekend? After weekend,
Good,
Quite
Miss.
good.
okay. Last week, I have shown you some important techniques. Before going into details, just have a overall view how we have to do knee mobilization. This video will tell you exactly what you have to do, like the hand placement. And you don't one more thing is we need to save our energy. That is very important. If you're treating 5 or 6 patients, and each and every day if you're using, like, the energy comes from your hands. Just for example, I'm telling you, if it is from hand muscles, very small muscles, right? So it will get fatigue easily. The next day you won't have a sufficient strength to do the movement, or you feel muscle soreness, the muscle pain. Okay, so we need to preserve our energy as well as the convenience and comfortable to both patient as well as therapist. That is very important. Okay, so from the beginning, whenever you're practicing, right, that time itself, always make sure that, or always have it in your mind that the proper positioning of therapist is very important. Okay, so it should be like you won't strain your muscles, or you won't, like, sometimes some people may bend through thorax. That is not the ideal way to practice. Okay, maybe you can bend it through your hip joint, not through your thorax or anything. So align the couch in such a way that you are giving, or you are bending through hip joint, not from your other cervical or thoracic region. Okay, so that is also very important. And then through body weight, or sometimes if the patient is so obese or overweighted, means just give it with your body weight. Okay, match it. Or if he is very lean, means use your upper body weight, upper body or your upper limb, whole shoulder joint. The force should come from shoulder joint, not from your wrist and hand muscles. Wrist and hand joint, don't strain that. Or if you're only when it is needed, means if it is a small joints, if you're doing MCP, if you're mobilizing the MCP or PIP, then only we need to use that. That is also in a very neutral position. You need to choose your hand or small joints in neutral. That is the ideal way. Otherwise, use your upper body weight or the whole body weight, or the force should, the pressure should come from your shoulder region, shoulder, elbow and wrist, like that. Choose it according to the body weight or pressure you need to give. Sometimes the stiffness is so high, maybe 5 months later he is coming to you, means it's so severe. So in that time, whether he is a lean or obese, you need to give it from from your body weight. Okay, because if the adhesion is so severe, so to break the adhesion, we need to give it that forceful effect. Okay, already we completed
can feel like a chisel into somebody's knee. It just doesn't feel good, right? So hands down, right around the patella, just like so. There's a lot of protocols out there. The thing they all have in common is finding first resistance barrier. So that's first resistance barrier for Melissa. And I'm palpating the joint line right now. So I should be able to really easily find where the end of orthokinematic range is.
So this is not the joint physiological movement. Is it clear? Physiological movement means flexion and extension. Here we are not doing the normal physiological movements, flexion and extension, but we are treating it in the like orthokinematics or joint surface movement or joint play. Is it clear? Now you can understand the difference. That the physiological movements means you can see that your maybe your foot comes towards thigh region, then we call it flexion, or your foot or calcaneum should move away from your thigh region, that is knee extension. We are not doing that. It is the physiological movements. We are not doing that. These are all accessory movements. Accessory movements cannot be produced by patient itself. It is not an active movement. Only the passively we can do some glide. We all know that what are the different accessory movements: gliding, rolling, spinning, compression, distraction. These are all the movements happening inside the joint surface, not as a whole bone movement. It happens only within the joint surface. Okay, so here you can see that this is the orthokinematics. We have different terminologies for the same thing: orthokinematics or manual therapy or joint play or accessory movements. All are same. Okay, so this is what different terminologies, but the same meaning. The meaning is we have to do this kind of glides and rolls.
That is, no matter how much harder I push right now, I'm not getting any more motion in glide. That's femur on tibia glide. No matter how much harder I push, I'm not getting any more motion. So I know where the beginning is. I know where the end is. Most protocols have you mobilize somewhere in between, whatever protocol you use.
And one more thing, this femur, the hand placement on femur is a stable one. He is not doing any movement in that aspect. He is just stabilizing, or he is preventing the movement on one aspect. And the only movement he is producing is from his right side, right hand, and pushing like AP glide. AP glide means anterior to posterior. Am I right? So this is anterior aspect, anterior to posterior aspect. Don't see it as a like on the couch. Treat it on the or view it on patient's perspective. Patient's anterior surface to posterior surface. Don't confuse it. Anterior to posterior glide means it is related to patient's orientation, not from ourselves or not from couch wise. Couch wise means it is going downward, right? It's going from top to bottom. It is not that way. You have to see it in the patient's perspective. So anterior aspect, from the anterior aspect, we are gliding it in the posteriorly. So AP glide, that's what the name tells you.
Make sure you go through with it, right? Make sure you do it from beginning to end, that you don't half-ass it per se, right? That you actually do the protocol, give the technique a fair chance, so that when you go to reassess, you know whether it was an effective technique and it wasn't just bad form on your part.
So what most of the people who designed this, like Maitland, Mulligan, or whoever it is, what they actually say is, after completing a one set, just reassess. Reassess means check the response. Check the response, like either the pain quality. You can check whether there is decrease in that or increase in that. And then the quality of movement, whether it is there any smoothness, or whether is there improve in the range of motion. Everything will give you the clue that whether you are giving, whether you are choosing the right technique. So always they prefer is reassess as frequently as possible. Okay, then only we get a better idea about whether we are choosing the right technique or not. Okay, so after one set, you need to reassess. And then after completing the 3 set, you need to, and then after completing the whole session, again, you need to check that. Sometimes sudden severe pain would be there. Some other joint pathologies would be there, means you may have aggravate the problem or aggravate the pain. So in that case, if there is any severe pain or irrelevant or unmatching pain, that is if you are applying a mild pressure, but the irritability and severity is higher, sometimes you expect that the patient may feel it is not that he expresses a lot of pain, intolerable pain. In that way, just stop the treatment and then ask them to come after 2 days. Okay, so we need to change the protocol. That is very important. It may happen. So if there is any high irritability, there is one important term called irritability. Irritability means when you touch a patient, the pain is reproduced. If pain is reproduced means how long it takes to settle. Maybe some people, if some movements produce pain means, ask them maybe seconds, within seconds, or when you lift the hand from the patient's body, immediately he relieves of pain. Or sometimes after 10 seconds. Till 10 seconds, it's okay. We can try it for other techniques. But now more than 1 minute or more than 20 seconds. In that case, maybe the irritability is higher. So you always choose maybe low grades of oscillation, that is for pain and spasm. We have grade 1 and 2. You can do that. Don't go for higher grades. Or you can just do some mild techniques. You reduce the pressure. Just reduce the pressure and check for the first day's response.
Get you the result that you were looking for. How does that feel? A little weird. It does feel a little weird to be pushed into this direction, right? Like this is end range knee extension. Melissa does have a little bit of stiffness here though, so we're going to see how it makes her feel upon reassessment. I'm thinking she'll feel a little bit better. All right, guys, so I want to set that up for you one more time before we go to the close-up recap. Notice that the table is low enough that when I palpate her knee, I have to lean over just a little bit. That is purposeful so that I can use my upper body mass to create the force, and I'm not manhandling and using my upper body strength or the strength of my hands to get this mobilization done. That's not going to work. Then I'm going to find her patella, and I'm going to put my hands down around her patella. No Clark's sign or Clark's test. And it's a bad idea. It hurts so bad. All right. Once I have my hands down around her patella, I think it's good practice to find the joint line. It's going to make it so much easier to find your first resistance barrier and end arthrokinematic range. I'm not sure why it's not more common to teach palpation of the joint line for this technique when your hands are right here. You're then going to apply force through the arm on the femur.
If you have confusion with finding out the joint line, simple. The patella, you just palpate the patella. It is very prominent. We can easily locate that, right? So the lower end of the patella, just find out the lower end of the patella and then place your hand on the distal and lateral aspect of lower end of patella. Just imagine that this is the upper end and this is lower end. So in the lower end, just grasp or drag it to the lateral and medial aspect. That is what our joint line. Okay, so when you feel tenderness also, you need to locate it in this way. Okay, it is very, very useful for knee joint problem to find out whether it is from tibiofemoral joint or patellofemoral joint. First of all, we need to find out which joint the pain is, like the source of pain, whether it is comes from this or comes from patellofemoral joint. So in this thing, the joint line pain. So this joint line pain is typically comes from tibiofemoral. Okay. So if you compress it, like he already said, the Clark sign. The Clark sign is actually a typical sign for patellofemoral joint pain. Compressing the patella will produce pain means it comes from PF. Okay. Otherwise, if you palpate the joint line and if it reproduces the pain means, I'm just giving you a clue. It is not related to mobilization. Just for your clinical information, I'm telling you. So joint line tenderness means it comes from tibiofemoral. Okay.
And you can use to kind of make sure that the tibia doesn't rotate if you like, or to stabilize the tibia, or you could even adjust as you're going. The fomal, in case like I press down and I press the fomal right to a gastroc or a soleus trigger point, obviously I would move that. This hand essentially though is just going to be there to stabilize while this one applies the force. I'm going to find my first resistance barrier, find the
Okay,
end
so
of our
one
cortina.
more thing is, which one is convenient? Whether one surface should be stabilized and other should be mobilized. Is it clear what I'm saying? Okay, for whatever the mobilization is, you need to fixate the one joint surface and mobilize one aspect. Okay, so for this position, actually, we have the concave convex rule, right? So the concave is moving. Concave means the tibia is moving. Tibia is moving means the rolling, gliding, everything is in the same direction. Tibia is concave actually. If you are stabilizing the tibia and moving the femur, femur is if you are mobilized the femur means just check the joint surface. The femur's joint surface is convex, right? The convex is moving. If you are mobilized the convex means it is a concave convex rule is exactly opposite. Slide in one direction, roll in other direction. Is it clear? So accordingly you can change it. Which one is easy for us? For example, here the patient has problem with knee extension. Just for example, I am telling you. For example, this patient has problem with knee extension. Okay. Tell me guys, what is a knee extension? Knee extension means what is the direction of rolling?
Rolling means what do you mean rolling?
Rolling
Is
means
it
what is the physiological movements? The physiological movement direction is your rolling direction. I already told you in the last class, the rolling is in the direction of movement.
it's moving
Okay, knee
moving backward, right?
moving
backward, right?
anteriorly. Am I right?
Yeah.
Is moving anteriorly for knee extension. Am I right?
Yes, miss.
Yes,
So
yes.
rolling is also in the anterior way. Okay. So gliding for tibia is moving means the concave surface is moving. So the gliding is rolling is anteriorly means you need to glide or slide it also in the anterior direction. Is it clear? If you are mobilized the tibia and if you are taking, for example, knee extension stiffness, if the patient cannot produce knee extension means the knee comes anteriorly, right? So for that, rolling is in the anterior direction for both, whether concave is moving, convex is moving, your rolling is in the anterior direction. But if you are mobilizing the tibia means what glide you should give means the same anterior glide. So posterior to anterior glide you need to give. Is it clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so the glide, the tibia, if you are mobilizing the tibia means according to the concave convex rule, both are in the same direction, rolling and gliding in the same direction. So you need to give in the anterior way. You need to glide it. You need to glide the tibia in the anterior direction. So if you're, because he is positioning him in positioning the patient in supine lying. Supine lying, am I right? So supine lying, and it is not the adequate or comfortable position for the patient to push the joint. Okay, so what he is doing is he is mobilize the femur. That is the reason he is mobilizing the femur. Now for knee extension, same knee extension, if he is using the femur means anterior rolling and posterior glide is the actual technique. So it is easy for us to give push compared to pull. Is it clear? That's why he is choosing the supine. So the patient is convenient. For example, if old age patient, if you are treating an old age patient means they won't find comfortable in prone lying. Am I right? So they may have some respiratory problems, or they have some issues in prone lying. Females also find it very difficult. So what he is doing means, he's instead of gliding the tibia, he is using femur. Femur is actually, the joint surface is convex, right? But knee extension means the same thing, rolling, anterior rolling, but posterior glide. You need to give posterior glide to femur. Is it clear now? When you are giving tibia, if you are giving a tibia mobilization, tibial mobilization means fixate the femur and then give anterior glide. But instead of that, if you are using femur as a mobilization, or femur should be mobilized, means what you have to do is fixate the tibia and give posterior glide. Then the exact reaction is improving the knee extension. We can, the final result is improving the knee extension, but which joint surface you are mobilizing, that will tell you which direction you have to apply. Whether it is from whether it is a tibia you are choosing or femur. So here actually for posterior glide, this is easy way. This is just we need to push it. Otherwise, if he's doing for tibia means he need to pull it towards himself, and it is very how to say that, it will tire ourselves. Okay, so easy way is this is, that's what he is using. Maybe it looks like you're confusing, but when we complete all the techniques and all the way, it becomes easy. Don't worry. Okay.
Pneumatic range, back off to 50%. And if I was doing a grade 4, it would be a very small amplitude oscillation, 1 to 2 oscillations per second. And notice I'm just rocking my upper body. You guys don't see me doing this with my arms, right? No pumping, not pumping her knee. I'm just rocking with my arms, putting weight this way, right? So it's all coming down through this arm with a nice large surface area created by the entirety of my palm, not my web space.
Okay, if the pain is there, the chief complaint is pain, means choose grade 1. Grade 1 means don't go to the barrier, just in the beginning stage itself, you have to give slight thrust. Or if it is the joint stiffness is the main problem, means go little deep and then give some oscillation. Okay, maybe only few centimeters you get, is not more than that. Within that you need to divide whether we need to give grade 1, grade 2 or grade 4. Okay.
Stay tuned for the close-up recap. So for a close-up recap, guys, once again, it always helps to know your anatomy. So we have Melissa's patella here. And then if I just kind of sink my hands down, I can start feeling, well, there's the fibular head right there. If I follow the fibular head, this nice rounded, bony landmark here, I actually feel like a little guitar string right here. That's actually her LCL, which leads right into her joint line, which is exactly where I want my thumbs to be. Now notice how I positioned my hands here, guys. I got both my thumbs over the joint line so that I can feel glide, but my hands themselves are around her patella. Again, we don't want to mimic Clark's sign and give her patellar pain for no reason. Now, as soon as I kind of get myself in good position, I got her leg nice and stable with my left hand here. With my right hand, I'm just going to go ahead and apply a little bit of force until I start to feel some glide. And then I'm going to keep applying force until I feel the end of arthrokinematic range of motion. I then can back off 50% and I can start doing my oscillations. Remember, guys, to keep your body weight over your hands, you're using the weight of your upper body mass, your torso, to create these oscillations. You're not muscling it with your hands or even trying to muscle it with your arms. It should be a nice sway that's applying all this force. And of course, once I finished my mobilizations, I could then go ahead and reassess. So there you have it. Assess, address, reassess. Make sure that every time you choose a joint-based manual therapy technique, it is based on an assessment, and that you return to that assessment after you finish the intervention to see if it was effective for the individual, the patient or client that you had in front of you. Ensure that you continue to learn your anatomy, because your anatomy is going to help you with your hand placement, with understanding what a joint can do, with understanding what you may gain from this particular technique. And of course, practice. You have to practice these techniques, hopefully not for the first time on a patient or client who just walked in the door. If you can, find a more senior instructor or a mentor to give you some really good hands-on instruction. Use your peers for some good feedback. And of course, always look for live education to help with your manual therapy techniques. I know these videos make education very convenient, but there is no substitute.
Okay, so now he's clearly tells you the anatomical knowledge is very important, and then the practice, equally important is how effectively you practice. Okay, so just to get a model like your siblings, mother, whoever is available, just use them and practice on them. If you treat a normal people, or if you mobilize it on the normal patient, then you will find out what is the availability, what is the joint play. After you practice on normal people, then only you can understand what is accessory movement or what is orthokinematics. Okay, or what is joint play. All of three terms are same. Don't confuse it. Orthokinematic, accessory motion, joint play. These are the different terminologies. We are using it for the same concept. Okay, so just have anatomical knowledge, and then you practice how important, and then the updated with the current techniques, like live seminars, workshops. These are very, very important. Like whatever the advanced techniques are there, you can come to know whenever you attend this seminars and workshops. These three are very important. So maybe you get a little bit confused on these techniques, but when we go into each and every joint, right, after hip joint, knee joint, like upper limb, lower limb, all the techniques, then you get a better idea what we are saying. Okay. Is it clear, or that concept, do you find it still difficult to comprehend?
For me, a bit hard a bit.
You can have full, like how to say, the ligaments and capsules are relaxed. So when it is relaxed, then it is free to mobilize, free to use your articular, like the less force you can mobilize the joint. So that's why we are choosing resting position and loose packed position. Initially, for assessment and all, the best effective position is resting position. Okay, and then you can move on to the loose packed position. Don't ever do the mobilization in close packed one. I will tell you what are the loose packed position and resting position for each and every joint. Okay, whenever we come across, like in the practical, when we go to techniques, in that we will see it in detail about what is the resting position, what is the position of the patient, what glide you have to give, and what grade. Everything we will see it in detail whenever we cross each and every joint. So the resting position means the maximum joint play. So the capsules and ligaments are most relaxed. So it will allow you to mobilize, or it can allow you to do the arthrokinematics on joint surface. And always use this position for evaluation and treatment positions. Okay, so first thing is, whenever you start treating, for example, day 1, means you start it on the resting position. You start it in resting position, and for assessment also use resting position. Another thing, the loose packed positions are, this is a position where you're both like femur and tibia. If you're doing knee extension, if you're going for joint mobilization, it is widely separated. Out of all the positions, loose packed position is a thing where you get the maximum gap between the joint surface. It is easy for us, right? So you cannot damage the joint surface, or you are not damaging the cartilage. For everything, the loose packed position is very effective. And compared to resting position, this will have greatest amount of joint play. And the other thing is, you can use for traction and advanced mobilization and all, use loose packed one. So close pack, don't start it on close packed position because it is very less gap. You don't get space between the articular surface. So if you are mobilize it, means it's very difficult. As well as the capsules and ligaments are also very tight. So if you try to mobilize in that, it's a time consuming effort. It takes more effort from you, and it also damages the joint surface. So always avoid close packed position. So application. So you need to remember the concave convex rule. The rolling is in the direction of physiological movements, and gliding and slide. The slide and glide are exactly opposite in convex is moving. If you are mobilize the convex joint, then the rolling and gliding is in the opposite direction, and concave is moving, means rolling and gliding in the same direction. Just remember this one. This will be very important. Okay, and the complete relaxation of the patient. Make sure that both physically and mentally the patient should be relaxed, because this is actually passive force. They are not doing any movement. So make them completely relaxed. Then only they don't get muscle spasm, and the capsules, ligaments, everything is relaxed. So you can achieve the best results. Okay, so the patient should be relaxed and explain the thing. Sometimes if patient is confused or he doesn't know what you are doing, then he may get tensed, right? So explain the purpose of treatment and what sensation you can expect. Just a mild pressure or a mild pressure or pain, mild pain with pressure feel. That is what we can expect. The pain is there, or if it is intolerable pain and all, ask them to immediately inform you, and then you need to stop the treatment. Okay, and evaluate before and after treatment. I told you, always make it a habit that assess it. Don't think that after completing all the technique, then we will check it. Never do that. Always keep it in mind that after each set, after each technique, you need to check them. And either you can get a feedback from the patient, as well as you can do some examinations. So and the next one I told you, stop the treatment. If it is too painful, just stop it and ask them to come after 2 days or 3 days of gap. And use proper body mechanics. That's what I told you. Don't strain yourself, as well as don't make it uncomfortable for patients. So it should be both convenient to both the patient as well as therapist. And one more thing I told you, gravity. Always use gravity to assist. So always the downward movement. If you are applying a downward movement, or that's what he is doing, right? So if you use downward movements, it is not, I'm not telling it in the patient's perspective, just like a couch. Just imagine that if you are pushing downwards, okay, then it will easy to apply technique. That is, the push technique is easy compared to pulling. Sometimes if there is no way to do mobilizing on, like sometimes it's we have to do upward movements, then no other way, means you can try that. Otherwise, always stick on to downward movements. Okay, for example, knee flexion is a problem. In that way, same video, just take for example, knee flexion is a complaint. If they have restricted knee flexion, means what you have to do is prone lying. the prone lying is not convenient or it is difficult for them, means you need to do instead of AP glide, you have to give PA glide. That is pull the femur towards the towards therapist. And begin and end treatments with grade 1 or grade 2. Okay, so always end it and start the treatment with the first grade and second grade oscillation. These two are not going into the resistant barrier. It's initial in the beginning of the range you have, right? That is what the grade 1 and 2 oscillations. So patient's relaxation, very important. And then to relax the muscle, you need to add other techniques also. We have muscle energy technique or stretching, mild stretching. Everything will stretch or give relaxation to muscles. Otherwise, the muscles will guard or muscles produce muscle spasm. And initial mobilization or after assessment, you can go for resting position or loose back position. And I already told you, stabilize one joint segment. Okay, whenever you are doing mobilization, one joint surface should be firmly stabilized. Okay, for example, if you are mobilizing the elbow joint, means if you are planning to do mobilization on radius and ulna, means stabilize the humerus and then mobilize the radius and ulna. Or if you are going to mobilize the humerus, means stabilize the radioulnar joint or radioulnar bone and then mobilize your humerus. So one segment should be stabilized, or you are restricting the movement, and other surface or other component you have to give mobilization. So how we can give it means sometimes it is possible for us, like while giving gliding, you can stabilize the other segment. But sometimes it is not possible, means you can use belts. You just use our daily wear, or sometimes it is available. Just tie it, or we can use assistance. Some other people can support. Attenders. Sometimes the patients, attenders or caregivers, they can also be used to stabilize the proximal joint surface. So, and unwanted stress. So don't create, that's what I told you, don't damage the articular surface or eroding, or we don't cause any degenerative processes. That is very important. And one more thing, now we are coming to the treatment force and direction of movement. The treatment force is applied as close to the opposing joint surface as possible. So whenever you are giving a joint slides or glides, it is close to the joint surface, like how they palpate the joint line. Palpate the joint line and then just look very close to that. If you have like a problem with the knee joint, don't go apply the gliding or sliding in the middle of shaft of tibia. There is no use in that, or the middle of shaft of femur. We don't give that. Close to the joint surface. How near to the joint surface, how that effective the technique would be. Okay. And then use larger contact surface. Don't have like a very pinpoint or very narrow grasp. Always use wider one. So use the whole hand pressure application. Thereby it avoid the pinching force or some kind of poking kind of sensation. We don't want that. We just want to apply a pressure, not a pinch or a poking sensation. If it is a smaller joint, no other way, we need to use our small joint like MCP, IP, But for larger surfaces like shoulder joint, hip joint and all, use flat surface of the hand. And the direction of the movement during treatment is also either parallel or perpendicular to the treatment plane. I will tell you what is treatment plane. Second. Yes. So the treatment plane, the joint traction techniques are applied always perpendicular to the treatment plane. So you can see that this is a treatment plane. Always the concave surface, whichever the concave surface, that is the direction of treatment plane. Okay, so if it is perpendicular to the treatment plane, then we call it traction. Okay, and the parallel to the treatment plane, we call it glide. Okay, so a treatment plane is always concave surface. Whichever the concave surface it is, then we call that as treatment plane. For example, glenoid fossa. Glenoid fossa is concave and the head of humerus is convex. So always take the treatment plane as glenoid fossa, and the traction is also given in perpendicular to that, perpendicular to the glenoid fossa, and then the glide and slide should be given in the parallel to that direction. So the direction of movement during treatment is either parallel or perpendicular to the treatment plane. So when we have the gliding techniques are applied parallel to the treatment plane, when we will choose gliding techniques parallel to the treatment plane means the glide in the direction in which the slide would normally occur. So always the glide and slide are equally the more or less same terms. Okay, so the direction of sliding is easily determined. That's what I told you, that treatment plane and convex rule is there. Okay, always the concave surface is taken as a treatment plane. So always use, whenever you are applying a gliding technique, before applying the gliding technique, use distractions. Okay, thereby what is the result means you are increasing the joint gap. Am I right? So you are increasing the joint gap, thereby we are improving the mobilization. Okay, so before starting any gliding technique, apply a distraction and then you can start doing gliding techniques. And one more thing is, if gliding is too painful, sometimes, for example, knee flexion is what we need to mobilize, but it is too painful. That is, the posterior glide is too painful. Means what we have to do is, we can start it in the painless direction. For example, knee extension or anterior gliding. You just start it with that, and then after that you can start progressing to painful segment. Painful aspect, which direction is painful, then you start that. So the re-evaluate, always reassess the patient whenever we get the chance, after completing the set, after completing the treatment, and then the next day also. Okay, so how we can check the response means, if increased pain is there but tolerable, means we can reduce the amplitude and the force, pressure, everything can be reduced. But if the pain is same or better, like that means you can repeat the same maneuver. You can continue it for 2 or 3 days. But if it is improving means, maybe you can go for higher grades. Maybe grade 1 and 2 is improving means, just start trying grade 3 or other traction glides. And then we have speed, rhythm, and duration of movement. It's very, very important. Normally, we can give 3 to 6 oscillation means one downward movement. Okay, one AP glide, we call it oscillation. So how we can do is 3 to 6 sets of oscillation. So you need to do set means in one set you have like 2 to 3 oscillation per second. Okay, so like that you can repeat it for 3 to 6 sets. You can increase it like for 20 to 60 seconds for tightness. If it is tightness is there, you can continue the treatment or sets for 20 to 60 seconds. Okay, for example, for 1 second, you have to apply 2 to 3 oscillation. So you can imagine how rapid we have to do. Within a second, you have to give 2 to 3 compressions. Okay, 2 to 3 oscillations per second. Within second, you have to give 3 thrusts. Okay, that's what we call it one set. So tightness is there means just limit it for 20 to 60 seconds. And if it is for pain, you can use 1 to 2 minutes. Up to 1 to 2 minutes, you can give grade 1 oscillation. Okay, so for pain, you can use for 1 to 2 minutes. And for tightness, you can use only 20 to 60 seconds. And then if you choose any one rhythm or how to say, for example, 3 oscillation per second. If you choose 3 oscillation per second means for whole sets, for completing the whole sets, you need to maintain that speed. Okay, 3 oscillation and then 3 oscillation. Give a gap for just 10 seconds. You just give a gap and then again give the pressure. 3 oscillation, 3 oscillation. So the oscillation cannot be varied. 3, if you are giving one set, 3 oscillation means maintain all the sets with the same 3 oscillation. Or if you're choosing 2 oscillation per second means you continue all the tests, continue all the sets using that same oscillations. Is it clear? So smooth, regular oscillation, and the time gap is also you need to maintain the uniformity. Maybe if you're allowing 10 seconds gap, for example, one set, and then 10 seconds rest, and then one set, and 10 seconds rest, and then one set, and then 10 second rest. And in that one set, 2 oscillation means fix on or continue the same 2 oscillation in all the sets. Is it clear? If you're using 3 oscillation means the 3 oscillation, 20 seconds rest, 3 oscillation, 20 seconds rest, 3 oscillation. So like that you can maintain the uniformity. Like that you can repeat it for tightness means just 20 to 60 seconds. Okay, just maintain it for 20 to 60 seconds for tightness. So if it is pain, if you're giving oscillations for pain and all, you can give 1 to 2 minutes. Okay, you can extend it for 120 seconds. And in between, we have rest period also. Okay, along with that, we are taking that the whole sequence. Okay, so the speed of oscillations can be varied. So that's why I told you whether you want to give 3 oscillation per second or 5 oscillation or 2 oscillation, 1 or sometimes we can use 1 oscillation per second. It's very slow. Okay, 5 oscillation, very rarely we go for 5 oscillation because we cannot go for that high level of speeds. Okay, so the maximum speed for 1 second is 3 oscillation. So you can vary it for different effects if you want. For example, for painful joints, if it is a painful joint, you can apply intermittent traction for 7 to 10 seconds. Okay, so along with that, 1 to 2 minutes of pain technique, you can give some distractions. In between, you can give some joint distractions. Joint distraction means just pull the joint surface as a whole. Okay, this is added for painful joints. For restricted joints, so if it is more of tightness and stiffness would be there, no pain, no that pain is not a major problem. Then what we can do is apply a minimum of 6 seconds stretch force. Okay, so for pain, you are giving distraction. But for restricted joints, you can give some stretching to the joint. Stretching means, for example, knee flexion as the problem. Means you just go to the limit. Just do the movement. Flexion, try it for 6 seconds. That's what I is saying. For painful joints, give joint distraction. Is it clear? And if you are going for restricted joints, then you have to apply stretching. You all know what is stretching, right? Distraction is different. Stretching is we are moving into the restriction. Knee flexion only available for available range is 0 to 90 degree, means we are trying to move it for 110, 100. That's what we call stretch. Okay, so in between that, if you are having a restricted joints, you go for 6 seconds stretch force, and then release it, and then repeat it along. Intermittently, you can use stretches along with the oscillation. You have to combine the stretching technique. This is the speed, rhythm, and duration of movements. Is it clear?
Yes, miss.
Do you want break, or shall we continue?
Break for a while.
Pardon?
Please.
What about okay, everyone join. So 2 to 3 oscillation per second. Oscillation means he is doing AP glide. That's what oscillation. Okay, how he maintained that. Okay, 2 to 3 oscillation per second is considered as 1 set. Okay, so you can increase it in between. We have rest period. If you want, you can give 10 seconds of rest period. So for pain, if you are treating for pain, always use the slow oscillations. Okay, slow oscillations are effective, like 1 oscillation per second is also, because the pain and muscle spasm would be there. So to avoid that, or to reduce the aggravation or worsening of the condition, the oscillation speed should be minimal for pain problems. If it is an adhesion or joint stiffness is a major problem, means the oscillation can be like the maximum 3 oscillations. You can freely do that. There is no hesitation for that. We can strictly follow that. High speed oscillations for joint stiffness. Along with that, stretching. Along with that, if joint stiffness is there, in between the techniques, in addition to the rest period, you will have some stretching techniques also. For pain means apply distractions. In between the techniques, you can have distractions for joint pain problem. So in the assessment itself, you come to know whether it is a pain dominant complaint or stiffness dominant complaint. Okay, how we can find out means you just do the movement, just passively you complete the movement. What is the response, initial response, whether it is the pain is controlling the movement, pain is there, so he is not allowing the movement, then it is a pain dominant. Or if it is when you are started doing the movement, that time he doesn't have pain, but he has some stiffness or some difficulty in completing the movement, means it's a stiffness dominant. Or sometimes some people have mixed one, the pain is also moderate and stiffness is also moderate, then maintain the oscillation speed to 2. Okay, so just in that way you can vary the oscillation. Okay, 1 oscillation per second for pain and 3 oscillation per second for stiffness dominant problems. And if it is both are there, both joint pain is there, stiffness is there, means go for 2 oscillations. This is the speed of oscillation. Very few important concepts in that. Apart from technique, okay, apart from technique is there in the theory concept. Do you have any difficulty in following? Don't worry, we have various videos for each and every joint. We will how to apply the traction, how to apply distraction, and how to apply glides, whether we need to give anterior glide, posterior glide, everything we have. Apart from that, is there in the concepts, the concave convex roll, or in the grades of oscillation, the speed, rhythm, and duration, and the treatment plane? Is there any, you want me to repeat any concepts? Is there anything like, I couldn't understand, like, simply it's confusing like that? Is there anything?
Miss, can you repeat the roll and glide thing again?
Which one? Roll and glide.
Yes, Miss.
Okay. Thank you for asking. Okay.
Thank you, Miss.
So for this thing, so what is the main basic of this rolling and gliding means? Rolling means just imagine that it is in the direction of movement. For example, this is flexion. He's actually sitting. He's sitting in the chair. So the femur is parallel to the ground, right? And then your tibia is moving. Just he is doing flexion movement. Am I right? Do you understand what I'm saying? The patient is sitting in a chair, and then his femur is parallel to the ground level. Just imagine that. Sitting. Okay. Just imagine that this is chair. This is the patient's body. That's a poor diagram. Okay, so this is femur, and the tibia is what the action is produced, means flexion. Flexion means you can just imagine the tibia is moving backward. Am I right? The patient is sitting and the tibia is moving backward, means it's a flexion. Am I right?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. So the flexion direction is the rolling direction. Okay, whichever direction the movement is produced, in the same direction, the rolling of the joint surface would be same. Okay, don't get confused. For example, the posterior movement is flexion. So the rolling is also in the posterior direction. Is it clear? So the joint surface will roll it posteriorly. Roll means various, for example, this surface comes to this point, like how the tire is rolling. In the same way, your tibia's joint surface will move the femoral condyle. Okay, so the rolling is posteriorly, like same like knee flexion. Whatever the physiological movement, the rolling is also in the same direction. So is it clear? So the knee flexion is in the posterior direction. So your rolling is also, the joint should, like for example, driving a car. If you are moving anteriorly means the rolling should be the tire roll. How the tire rolls is in the same anterior direction. Am I right? The same way, the glide is also in the same direction of, rolling. Rolling is also in the same direction of the movement. If the flexion is in the posterior direction, so rolling is also in the posterior way. Okay. And now we are coming to the concave convex roll. So what is that means? The concave is moving. In the which one is moving means the concave is moving. Am I right? So the concave is moving means according to it's a physical one of the laws. The concave and convex means it has some different rules. So the concave is moving means the glide or slide is also in the same direction as rolling. This is what the concave convex rule says. So posterior rolling means the slide is also in the posterior direction. Simple. Is it clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so if he is doing extension, knee extension means he from knee flexion he has to do this way, upward direction, right? Knee extension means he will straighten the knee, right? So it is come to upward direction. So rolling is also in the same way. So anterior rolling would be there. And the concave structure is moving. The concave, the tibia is moving. So what we can predict from that is anterior rolling, and then the gliding is also in the anterior direction. Why this rolling and gliding happening means because we all have incongruent joints. It is not a perfect joint. We all have some irregularity, or it is not uniform. It is not like lock and it doesn't fit properly. So to adjust the spacing, to adjust that movement, along with the movement, we need stability to the joint. For that thing, we need the rolling and gliding. It is happening in a combined way. Okay, along with that, how much the rolling is there, that much of gliding would be there in the joint. It is a combined movement. Okay, thereby we are having a stability. Otherwise, if there is no rolling and gliding, means we will have dislocation. Frequent dislocation would be there in our joint. Is it clear now, this rolling and gliding concept?
I understand this.
Just imagine that tibia is moving. Okay, don't get confused with femur and all. For now, for understanding purpose, easy understanding, just imagine that the tibia is moving, tibia is concave, so gliding and rolling is in the same direction. Is it clear?
Clear. Thank you, miss.
So that is the reason we need to know the anatomy of each and every articular surface. We need the anatomical knowledge. What is the joint surface? What is the shape of each and every joint? For example, acromioclavicular joint. If you find out that in assessment, there is a problem in AC joint, means you need to know the shape of the acromioclavicular joint. Then only you can mobilize. Acromioclavicular means what are the joint surfaces? Acromion, one part of acromion, and then the clavicle, the distal end of the clavicle, together constitute acromioclavicular joint. If there is problem in that, you check the joint play, you check the movement, which one is difficult. And then you have to accordingly, we need to give some glide and glide in the AP way or PA way. Okay, antero-posterior or postero-anterior can be decided by joint surface, whether the concave is moving or convex is moving. Okay, patient's response. You need to understand the response of the patient while doing technique and after technique and 24 hours after techniques. Okay, so may cause soreness. You need to understand the difference between joint pain and soreness. Okay, sometimes soreness means when you apply a pressure, right? When you apply a pressure, the skin and soft tissues are getting pressurized along with the joint. Your other tissues also get pressurized, so that may cause soreness. Okay, it is not the typical problem. The whatever the technique, it is not caused by that, but the side effects of that movement. Okay, side effects of gliding effects that will cause soreness. Okay, soreness, it is there absolutely. When you apply a pressure, there should be some pressure on the other soft tissues. Thereby you expect a soreness. So what we will do is alternate days, give mobilization techniques on alternate days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 sessions per week. Thereby we can allow adequate rest for that to settle the soreness. It is there. So the patient response may cause soreness. Okay, it is there. So understand that the patient may have that kind of the problems. So you inform them prior itself. Soreness is different from the pain, the joint, the pain produced from joints. Okay, so that's why I told you perform joint mobilizations on alternate days to allow that pressure healing, as well as it can settle the soreness also. Another one is you can expect that there is an improvement in range of motion. Maybe when he come to you, that time maybe 90 degree only, he has a 90-degree range of movement. Means after techniques he can improve to 100 or 95. Just a 95 degree is also enough. The 5-degree improvement is there, means that is a factor that will help you in continue the treatment. So we are successful in finding out the problem. If it is like intolerable pain, unmatching pain, that is what we need to be alert. Okay, whenever there is a unmatching pain, that application of technique and then the pain created is a mismatch, means you need to stop the treatment. So that will tell you that there is some whether we are applying a wrong technique or we are applying the correct technique on wrong tissues. Okay, so mismatch in the pain and application of technique will give you red sign that you need to stop the treatment. And then so that's why I told you, after each sets and after completing the treatment, frequently you need to check the response. As many times you are assessing, that is effective for improving the improving your level of or your quality of treatment. Okay, and pain is always the gate, but tell the patient what is the difference between soreness and joint pain. Okay, and now we are coming to the joint traction technique. It is very useful because we are increasing the joint space. Like why we are giving more importance to this peripheral joint mobilization means because in after fracture, majority of fractures after fracture immobilization, you come to experience or you come to have a patients like joint stiffness. Almost 90% of cases after fracture, they will have joint stiffness. You need to mobilize them. We need to give active exercises. That's why we are here in this MSK1, we are having joint mobilization technique. So already the joint is immobilized. After fracture, what we have to do? We need to immobilize the segment, right? To heal or to completely settle the problem, we need to give adequate rest. So during that time, along with the healing of bone, your joint is also get adhered. Because for example, if you're not moving for just 4 days, if you're not moving your shoulder joint for just 4 or 5 days, check the response. It will reduce the range. It won't be as flexible as prior to the immobilization. So then take for example for 3 months of immobilization or 2.5 months of immobilization. Can you imagine what is the response? The joint, everything around that joint as well as the joint surface and synovial fluid, everything gets it's maybe like dried up, or it will contract, or it will attach to, or it will stick to the joint surface. Your capsule may stick to the joint surface. Muscle may becomes weak because we are not using that. So around any or sometimes the joint space is also gets reduced. We don't have the movement of synovial fluid. So the joint space is day by day it reduces and becomes, it is very close to each other. So you cannot produce the normal adequate movement. Okay, so during that time, we need joint traction and joint distractions. Joint traction means you're increasing the space between the joint surface. This is very, very important. Prior to any mobilization, we need to distract the joint. Why? Means if you are mobilize it without that adequate space, means it will cause damage or it will cause friction between the joint surface. Am I right? So it is very close to each other, and if you're giving glide and slide and rolling in that direction, means what will happen? It will cause damage to your articular surface or your joint surface. Already it is weak. Already it is having too much of the problems. If you are in that addition to that, if you are adding this kind of glide without traction, means it will worsen the problem. It won't give you any beneficial effects. Okay, so the joint traction, now you will come to know how important it is. So pulling one articular surface away from another. Okay, that is what the concept is. And we all know it is done perpendicular to the treatment plane. And the main reason is to decrease pain and to reduce the joint hypomobility. And we have the like Kaltenborn. He is one of the pioneer of, is one of the few research scientists who will have started this mobilization technique, or have created this mobilization technique. And so he classified this traction. For traction also we have grades. Okay, we have different grades. Okay, grade one means we are giving a traction force in such a way that there is no actual separation, but it will neutralize the pressure. So that is what grade 1. So it is useful for produce pain relief. That is the main effect. And grade 2 traction. Grade 2 means you are increasing the force, thereby we are taking up the slack. So all the loose tissues are coming to the, like how the rope, for example, the loose rope is there, means we are tighten it in such a way, or we are extended in such a way that there is no wavy pattern. It's like it is in the straight line and tension is created in the rope or band. That's what we call grade 2. And then grade 3 is just give the stretching effect also. We are just pulling it from each side, thereby you are having a greater tension, more tension compared to grade 2. This is the different grades of traction. Okay, so we are concentrating on grade 3, or increasing the mobility in the hypomobile joint. Okay, painful reaction means grade 1 and joint stiffness is prominent means grade 3. Okay. So when you need to apply grade 3 means it should be the loose packed position. For each and every joint, we have different loose packed position. So application of, just remember that whenever you are applying grade 3 traction, it should be in the loose packed position. Okay. So hypomobile joint, no pain. If pain is there means always have grade 1. Okay. If hypomobility due to joint stiffness means grade 3, and in the moderate stage, like both pain is there and joint stiffness is there means grade 2. And for if you are applying grade 3, always apply it in the loose packed position. This is what traction is. We are increasing the joint space. Okay. So now we are coming to see anterior glide to increase extension. Now you can get a clear idea about what I am saying. So anterior rolling, extension means what is that? Knee extension means anterior rolling. I explained right in the previous in the one picture. Anterior rolling. So if your tibia is extended or knee extended, means there is an anterior rolling, and the concave surface of tibia is moving means that the glide is also in the same direction. The concave means the glide and rolling in the same direction. So what we are doing is anterior glide to increase knee extension. Aspect. This is what we can call it posterior to anterior glide, or if you want to avoid confusion, just use it as anterior glide. Okay.
Excuse me, miss. Not able to see the video.
Oh. Now can you see?
Okay, miss.
Position the patient prone to obtain end range extension. Apply grade 1 distraction by pulling.
Can you see that he is applying a grade 1 distraction? Okay, and then he is applying anterior glide. Because to avoid friction and damage to the joint surface, we have to give mild, that is grade 1 distraction, and then applying anterior glide. Because the tibia is moving means rolling and gliding in the same direction.
Distally on the long axis of the leg. Apply the stretch glide in an anterior direction parallel to the treatment plane in the tibial plateaus. Before the distraction and glide, add lateral rotation to the tibia in order to emphasize the motion needed for the terminal locking mechanism.
So if you know the biomechanics, then you will understand that the terminal locking and unlocking. Okay, so the tibial lateral rotation will increase the locking and knee extension, right? That's why he is adding up the lateral rotation of tibia also. It is like medial rotation of femur or lateral rotation of tibia on locking. You can go through that. In the biomechanics, we have locking. There is a mechanism of locking and unlocking. So to increase the terminal knee extension, the last 10 to 20 degrees of knee extension, he lost it because of VMO. VMO is a vastus medialis oblique. This muscle goes for maybe like there is a higher chance, 90% of cases, this VMO goes for weakness. It's not weakness, it's a little far from weakness. So in that case, we need to, along with that VMO weakness, the restriction also in the last 10 to 20 degrees of knee extension. We may ask why that the last 10 degrees important, means it's very important for walking. The last 10 degrees of knee extension is very, very essential for smooth pattern of walking. If there is any lack of that, it is not cosmetically also not looks nice, as well as it becomes very habitual. He is practiced on that, means the lifelong he may have deviated gait pattern. So we need to correct that. So this technique is very, very useful. Yeah, I will repeat the thing.
Position the patient prone to obtain end range extension. Apply grade 1 distraction by pulling distally on the long axis of the leg. Apply the stretch glide in an anterior direction parallel to the treatment plane in the tibial plateaus. Before the distraction and glide, add lateral rotation to the tibia in order to emphasize the motion needed for the terminal locking mechanism.
Okay, let me tell you one thing that, for example, the patient couldn't go for prone lying. He complains that he doesn't maintain the prone lying for more than 3 minutes. If he says like that, then only we need to mobilize the femur in supine lying. Now is it clear? So this is the normal. To increase the knee extension, we can mobilize it with tibia. Sometimes what happens, the patient is not it's not a convenient position, or in that case we can do it like the previous video, the video where in the supine lying is giving some posterior glides. Posterior glides to femur can produce the same effect, like increase the knee extension. Is it clear now?
Yes, miss.
Okay, instead of tibia, we are mobilizing the femur, and in the femur it is convex and is moving. The convex means the gliding in one direction and rolling in opposite direction. Okay, that's why anterior rolling of knee extension is created as the posterior glide in femur. Okay, so that's why he is giving posterior glide to increase knee extension. Is it clear now? When the patient couldn't tolerate the positioning, prone lying is difficult for majority of old age people. In that case, we need to go for femur gliding. Femur's posterior glide to increase knee extension. Now you can get a little idea about what I am saying, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So this is other technique we have called anterior glide in other position.
You have 10 minutes to finish your research. You rush into searching on Google, then you find a title that sounds credible. You enter the page and start. I'll now demonstrate for you a posterior to anterior mobilization at the tibial. I'll now demonstrate for you a posterior to anterior mobilization at the tibiofemoral joint. I will initially position my patient in supine. I'm going to come around and work on my patient's left leg. So I'm going to bring this leg up into a given range of motion that I'd like to perform the mobilization at. It's very key that you sit on your patient's foot, so that way you can block any accessory motion that may be occurring.
And what we want to do is we basically want to scoop up underneath the tibiofemoral joint. Here we're going to let our thumbs rest on the condyles of the femur, and we're going to apply a posterior to anterior force.
Can you see that? This is what the pulling. It's not pushing. We are giving, it's otherwise called pulling technique or scoop technique. Okay, we are pulling towards us, right? So you can use this method also. If a patient cannot go for prone lying, you can substitute this one. But this is more of like if the patient is too obese or overweighted, and the pulling effect can stain you, and you cannot also you cannot use body weight also. This is the disadvantage of using this position. Is it clear?
At the tibia, while applying pressure from my thumbs through the condyles, I'll be pulling towards me. This is stressing the posterior horn of the menisci and can be performed at various ranges of motion as an assessment technique. Now, it can also be utilized as what we'll...
So this it is actually 90 degree flexion. Sometimes whichever is adequate. For example, only 40 degree of knee flexion is available, means you maintain that position and then sit on the foot and then give some scooping technique. Okay, whichever is available. You sit on that and give some glides.
Refer to a scoop mobilization that can be targeted to treat posterior horn menisci derangement or issues of pain with deep flexion. Here, we're going to the point at the range of motion where the patient is first experiencing their pain, and we're providing the same technique through repeated motions, and afterwards we'll reassess for patient response.
So you can use this way also. This is also other alternative if you cannot position the patient in prone lying. Okay.
I'll demonstrate for you a posterior to anterior mobilization at the tibiofemoral joint. I'll initially position my patient in supine. I'm going to come around and work on my patient's left leg. So I'm going to bring this leg up into a given range of motion that I'd like to perform the mobilization at. It's very key that you sit on your patient's foot, so that way you can block any accessory motion that may be occurring. And what we want to do is we basically want to scoop up underneath the tibiofemoral joint. Here we're going to let our thumbs rest on the condyles of the femur, and we're going to apply a posterior to anterior force at the tibia.
So we are using thumb for stabilizing the femur or proximal segment, and using your fingers, we are giving some kind of glides, anterior glides. So to avoid confusion, what I'm saying is this kind of posterior to anterior, anterior to, mostly they use this way. But what I prefer is just give the direction. The anterior glide is enough. So posterior glide means that is the enough that will tell you that we are applying it in posterior direction. Don't confuse it with anterior to posterior, posterior to anterior. But in books, in all the books, they mentioned it this way. Posterior to anterior, anterior to posterior and all. But just imagine that the end, the posterior to anterior mobilization means he is giving the force in the anterior direction, anterior glide. Simple, the end one, this one. The posterior to anterior means the which one we are ending, that is the direction we are applying the force.
While applying pressure from my thumbs through the condyles, I'll be pulling towards me. This is stressing the posterior horn of the menisci and can be performed at various ranges of motion as an assessment technique. Now, it can also be utilized as what we'll refer to a scoop mobilization that can be targeted to treat posterior horn menisci derangement or issues of pain with deep flexion. Here, we're going to the point at the range of motion where the patient is first experiencing their pain, and we're providing the same technique through repeated motions, and afterwards we'll reassess for patient response.
If you manage a team, you should be using Monday.com. Can I go again?
Monday.com audition take 2 and action.
Being a manager
Is used tibia for mobilization. So anterior glide to increase extension and posterior glide to increase flexion. If you're using tibia as a mobilization force, use this one. Okay, anterior glide to increase extension and posterior glide to increase flexion. Is it clear? Because tibia means the concave. Concave means posterior, concave means rolling and gliding in the same direction. Okay, next one is along with that mobilization, we are using rotation also, like previously I told you, right? Lateral rotation for increasing the knee extension. Okay. Can you see the slide? Can you see the video? Yes, sir, Mama.
Can we?
This is the medial tibial rotation, mobilization. The patient supine, the therapist sits on this portion of the table. The web space grabs the tibial condyles medial laterally and applies a medially rotated force. Medial rotation is needed for entering flexion.
Yes.
So
can you see that? So medial rotation of tibia for knee flexion and lateral rotation of tibia for increasing the knee extension. Along with this glides, we need some type of rotational mobilization. It is a type of spinning type of mobilization that is useful to achieve full range. Okay.
So patients have limitation in end range flexion or end range squatting. This is an appropriate technique.
Okay, so simple. For a knee joint mobilization, we already completed. For what is anterior glide, how we can give. For posterior glide, what is the placement, and then for rotations also. For rotation also, we have this is the way actually. So just imagine that you are mobilizing the tibia. In very rare cases and in the exceptional cases only, we can use femur mobilization. Okay. Otherwise, you can use the tibia as a mobilizing force. Okay. So anterior glide to increase extension, posterior glide to increase flexion. Okay. So along with that, the lateral rotation of tibia to increase knee extension and medial rotation of tibia to increase knee flexion. Is it clear? Is there any confusion in this?
sir. Yes, miss. Yes.
Yes, miss, for doubt, or you are clear?
Clear.
Okay. That's it. And then the choosing the resting position or loose packed position, what we commonly prefer is avoid end ranges. Okay, that is a very fundamental thing. That is the complete knee extension or complete knee flexion. In these things, it is actually it is a close packed position. We generally avoid that, but very rarely, if there is a restriction, restriction is in the end ranges. Restrictions in the end range means we have no other way. We need to go till that point. Otherwise, don't go for that beginning of the range or the end ranges, like full flexion or full extension. Just avoid that, and anywhere the restriction is there, maintain that position. For example, he has availability till this level. He cannot complete the full straightening of knee. If it is so, maintain in that level and give the appropriate technique. Okay, whether we want to give anterior glide or posterior glide. For example, if knee extension is till this level, she cannot extend fully. Okay, so this is the available range you have, means just maintain this and then give anterior glide. Anterior glide will increase knee extension, along with that tibial lateral rotation. So this thing can be given in this position. Whatever the available range the patient has, maintain that and sit on their foot and then do the anterior glide. For knee extension stiffness, or if they have problem with knee extension, just do anterior glide and then lateral rotation. Is it clear? And in case if you want to give traction in this position, you cannot give traction or distraction. In that situation, what we can do is you can have some pillow or some towel placement under the knee and then make it free hanging. So the foot shouldn't be placed on the couch. It should be like I think it's, wait a minute, it is hanged up. I think it is not moving. What we can do is, in the first video I have shown you, right? That is the ideal way to give distraction. Along with the distraction, if you want, we can choose it like the first video I have explained, right? That 15 minutes video. This. Okay, let's end it now. Okay, wind up and see you tomorrow. Other techniques and other joint movements, everything we will discuss it. I will upload the video, today's video. Go through that thing, and if you have any doubts, I will clarify it in tomorrow's class. Okay.
Okay, Miss. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Miss.